I've got this inner power of just peace, of knowing, of being comfortable in my own skin, of being authentic. And that has more outer impact. That shifts your culture. That empowers your employees to be their best self. That motivates them like nothing else.
Hey, MU Nation. Welcome back to the Millionaire University Podcast. If you're a returning listener or if you're a new listener, thanks for showing up. We're happy to have you here. I'm Brien Gearin with you today, and I'm excited to share this interview with my guest, Brent Perkins of 3X Bold. Brent is an executive coach, an entrepreneur, a former C-suite executive. He's been around the block and then some when it comes to the business world, and he is joining us today to talk about being bold. And there are so many ways to be bold as an entrepreneur, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper. There's a lot of things that entrepreneurs face in our lives that can result in inner struggle and being able to make choices, realizing you have the option to make choices. So that what we talk about today has an impact on you as yourself personally or with you as a business owner and an entrepreneur. So without further ado, let's welcome to the stage Brent Perkins of 3X Bold. Here we go. Brent, you can do your story way better justice than I can. Give us a little bit of your story, your context, your background, how you got to where you are today, and how things are going.
Yeah, I think my path is pretty traditional where we have big dreams. We end up doing some sort of traditional corporate job, work our way up to either something higher up in the executive suite or running our own business, which is what I did. I started my first business at 27. And by the time I was 33, had landed myself back in or into for the first time a C-suite role and stuck in the CEO role for two different companies, grew them, got on the Inc. 5000 list over the course of almost 11 years. And it was a wild ride. And I thought ultimately I had reached the pinnacle of success. There was good money. There was good status. I felt empowered like I was somebody special who had made it and reached my dreams. And then life came calling. After 5 years of sitting in the CEO role of this LED lighting company, we had taken it all the way through to the very end of an IPO, which just failed to launch due to the timing of the market. And really just put in so much chasing this success. And at the end of it, I had to step out. And as I took a break for the first time in a decade, I had been practicing meditation for about 10 months because I just needed something else to get out of my head. I've been stuck there my whole life. It's why I hadn't slept well in decades. It's why I had bags under my eyes. It's why so much stress was in my life. And as I was sitting there in meditation, I got this calling to write a book. And I don't know whether it was my higher self, it was God, it was something beyond me. And I laughed because I'm not that guy. I'm not a writer. I had no topic. And the next day was the same message. And the third day it was like, here's your title. Shoot, okay, I've got to do something here. And this was just in January of 2023. And I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast. And I was like, Tim and I think a lot alike. I'm going to buy the software he uses. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to write a book. And within 90 days, I'd written a book. 90 days later, I published it. And that was about 8 months ago. And since then, it's been this wild ride of next for me. I'm not chasing success in the same way. It's about looking at significance and what role that plays in what I used to chase or what I used to do in business. And I see so many other entrepreneurs that really are great at finding success. And it's so hard to tie all the other pieces in. Like, how do you not get divorced? How do you show up for your kids? How do you show up for yourself, right? How do you not burn yourself out, become an alcoholic, put on an extra 30 to 50 pounds? Like, how do you do all this in a way where you feel great and your marriage or your partnership is just amazing and you got time for your kids and you take care of your body? Like it's hard to pull all those pieces together again. And that's where my mission's been in life now, is how to give permission to other entrepreneurs specifically to explore what that looks like in their life. And that's why I created 3X Bold. So to be bold, I believe it takes, the ingredients are three things. You got to be courageous. I think every entrepreneur has that, right? That's why we take risks. We can leap out there, but we also got to be authentic. And I found in my own journey that got lost really quickly. And then the last piece for me is we got to be wild. And wild is something we do early on and we quickly forget it. And I'll explain it. So the courageous piece for me is deeper than how we look at it. Yes, we got to take risks. The courageous piece is really to step into our superpower. And I believe our superpower is the single thing we've all been given without prejudice, without favor. You have it, I have it, you don't have more of it, I don't have more of it or better of it, and it's choice. It is free will, it is our personal agency, and it sounds silly and contrite, and I know there's a lot of books out there on it, but most of us, as I work with people on this, we don't actually own choice all the way down to the depths in our life. We don't actually use it in a way where we change our narrative, tell our story, experience life, change our perspective. So it's a great place. I'll put a pin in that there. Choice seems to be where things go off the rails most of the time.
Yeah, let's expand upon that a little bit, because I think that's such a massive part of just one's personal journey, but especially as it pertains to entrepreneurship and everything that comes with starting, running, and owning a business. Owning your choice. And that was something myself as an entrepreneur, I think I'm still discovering that. But when I first got into things, it was like, I do have the option and the power within me to make that choice, right? It's when you go out on your own, you are on your own. It is up to you to make the choices. And at least in my experience, there's plenty of choices I made that were terrible and plenty of ones that were great and panned out well. So how do you discover that choice? Is it just like an epiphany moment? Do you have to just go in hard-headed and bang your head around a few times and experience some failures before you realize the power of your choice? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah. For me, the journey looked like what I believe a lot of us, especially entrepreneurs, go through, which is we got to where we're at because we grip on tight. We have control of everything. I was a CEO, but also pretended to be the CMO. I ran engineering meetings. I was the head of marketing. I was the pseudo head of product development. I prided myself on, I know how to do all these things. I can help run all these different areas. And it was really just me being a control freak because I was so afraid of what it actually looked like to own choice. And it's interesting, as I dove deeper in this, I was in Vistage for 8 years. I speak at Vistage, YPO, EO, all these organizations that are pretty similar. And the level of depression and anxiety amongst business owners in general, it's really high. And what's crazy is it's higher than most people realize just in the average person. So when I was doing some research for a speech I was given, NIH, National Institute of Health, the data says something we all know, which is about 5% of people have long-term depression and are on meds for that. But 31% of 18 to 44-year-olds will have MDD, major depressive disorder. This is not your buddy who's on some SSRI because they've got long-term depression. Major depressive disorder is can't get out of bed, hate yourself, have suicidal thoughts. Could be as little as 2 weeks, could be as long as 2 years, something in that range. This goes undiagnosed. It's not talked about. Some of the signs are, hey, I wonder where my friend is. They fell off the map in the last month. They come back, oh, I'm good. You're like, where you been? Oh, I don't know. I've just been busy. Okay. Odds are you've been really struggling. And to stack on that, the same NIH data shows that same population, the 18 to 44-year-olds, 21% will have severe anxiety, medically diagnosable anxiety, which means half of us, roughly, will have major depressive disorder and or severe anxiety in that time of our lives. Entrepreneurs, it's higher. And this is where when we have choice, when we can sit down and say, I don't need to be a control freak. Money isn't the only thing I'm chasing. That's definitely why I'm probably not keeping a lot of my employees because I'm chasing success and they're not. They're chasing something else that's rounded out by significance in their life. And they're probably pretty amazing at what they do. And I'm not developing them because I'm not allowing myself to own the choice in my life to let go, to let it be, to show up as the greatest me, but also empower my employees in the same way.
I love that. And those stats are eye-opening, of course, but especially in the entrepreneur, I believe it. Like it's the things that an entrepreneur or a business owner will deal with are quite different on the professional side of life compared to someone who isn't. Not to say that one's harder than the other or that any issues are created equal, but it's just a different set of circumstances. When your personal income depends on you and your action alone, not just showing up to a 9 to 5 and being present. When you decide your revenue, That's a lot of pressure to bear on your shoulders, especially when you have a family or others in your life to support. So yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. Owning your choice, and then your second point was being authentic. Is that where, are those mutually exclusive to where you really need to be authentic with yourself if you're going to discover your choice and discover that courage, or are those separately unrelated?
So there's a lot of different directions we can go here, but the way I put it together, and this is my choice for my interpretation of what this looks like in the world. But as I said, I believe the formula for a bold life, this courageous, authentic, and wild, looks like the courageous piece is owning your superpower of choice. It's the courage to step into choice at all costs. It's not letting it, I've made that decision before, I'm going to let my reticular activating system, which is like your built-in artificial intelligence, it's seen it, it's done it, it's just going to do the same thing again, right? And go, no, you know what? I don't have to just believe that John is acting this way because X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna actually ask him. I'm gonna choose differently. I'm going to actually believe he means well, and this isn't something he's doing on purpose. Like this is what I mean about choice. Choice exists at all levels. Like, how do we interpret life's experiences? So when we get into authenticity, for me, this is backed up by a quote by Picasso, which said, the meaning of life is to own and or discover or develop your gifts. Purpose of life is to give them away. And I love this because whether everybody reaches a point in their life at some point where they go, gosh, what's my purpose? And there's lots of different ways we can look at it, but this is how I choose to look at it because it's so simple that we all have the same purpose. And it is literally to share with the world that which we are amazing at, are great at, have been gifted with. So then we have to talk about what are our gifts. And that's why the authenticity piece is tied to it. Your gift can be a lot of things. It could be as broad as what I'm doing here, which is I'm sharing my life's collective experiences in a way where it's sharing this wisdom in a story form that can connect and make sense to people. Maybe it's some form of music and you got embarrassed because somebody made fun of you in 8th grade. Maybe it's you've got the gift of gab and you're just great at pulling things out of other people. A lot of times our gifts are things we've either stuffed away or they're things we do with our personal life, but we're too embarrassed or feel like that has no value in the business world. And that's not true. Right? This is what ultimately these gifts, developing them, is how we tap into our authenticity. Who is Brien? Who is Brent? I used to pretend I had to be who people wanted me to be and whatever I made up that looked like. How did I look? How did I act? How did I talk? What did I hold back on? Because if I say that, it's probably not something a CEO would say, especially not in the industry I was in. It's like, why am I filtering so much? I'm not being authentic. And when we pull through and pull our gifts in and we live our purpose, which is just giving it away. And it doesn't mean you can't make money and you can't build a business around giving things away. That is the value of each of us, is to share the uniqueness of who we are, which is why I say to bring your wild to the table. I was talking with Gino Wickman, founder of EOS, the other day, and he calls it let your freak flag fly. But however you define it, it's getting wild with, this is me. I'm authentic. I'm owning my superpower of choice, and real value of me in the long run, the going from chasing to just being, which helps us bring significance into our journey. It's getting wild. It's letting that purpose out. It's sharing it with the world unabashedly.
I love that. You led right into my next question, is expounding upon wild, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just being you and not being afraid to be you.
I mean, look, the best gift we can give to anybody is sharing all that we are as a human being with other people.
Yeah. And it's hard to realize that if you haven't been hit across the head with it, because as you were speaking, I'm relating this back to my personal life and upbringing. And when you're going through school as a kid, it's toe the line. You don't be crazy because everyone's going to make fun of you, right? Don't do this or don't do that. Don't do something you really feel would be funny or fun or whatever it might be, for fear of retribution of judgment. And it's the same is true in society today. The older you get, whether you own a business or do whatever in life, whether your family even. I love my family, but every time I put a LinkedIn post, I hear from friends and family, oh, that was an interesting one. I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm starting to let myself get a little bit more animated and be my true self, because people are drawn to the real you, right? People aren't really drawn to the fake you or the you that you think you need to be accepted. So yeah, your point rings true, because I think from childhood all the way through adulthood, it's very easy to be stuck in that realm.
So there's some telltale signs. I know as I reflect back on my journey, there are people who saw me maybe let my guard down over the years, whether we were on vacation or maybe we had a social evening. And they're like, who is this Brent? I don't see him very often. I didn't know this existed. And so this is just me. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Oh, I was hiding this person. And people really liked it ultimately. And it doesn't matter whether they liked it or not, but they liked that. I think they liked me less than they liked the comfort, the ease, the peace at which we actually show up when we're just us.
So when in your life did you realize making that change was on the table for you? Was it during your entrepreneurial rise or your successes, or was it towards the end when, or maybe was it recently when you're just like, it's time to be me?
Yeah. In my last CEO stint, we kind of made the agreement we're going to show up and have fun. And we made silly videos and we did things that were not traditionally buttoned up, let's just say. And I was still holding back. And it took me, and my journey included, I was married 18 years and ended up going through a divorce. I had to, and whether it'll be this way for a while or not, I don't know, but I had to completely step out of that corporate level career and needed to do something different. So I had to make some major shifts and changes in my life to be able to fully put this into action. Not everybody does. And I don't advocate for the way my journey turned out necessarily, or the path I took. Everybody's path is different. And it's not easy, but when we can be real with ourselves and when we can be honest that, hey, I keep hitting the same wall. I'm not making progress. There's a lot of friction. And I want to mention something here, because there's three things we get confused with, or I did anyways: obstacles, friction, and resistance. We're there because we hit up something and there's something in my way. And there's a lot of really good books, really good descriptions and support on how do we treat the obstacles as something we actually need to embrace. So I'm not talking about obstacles. And friction and resistance to me are hard to discern the difference. Even to this day, I struggle sometimes. But resistance is when I ask myself, I don't want to do that because there's fear behind it. Where friction is, it's not really tied to my authenticity. And maybe I feel pressure like I should do it. So there's shoulds. The shoulds are tied to friction, and fear is tied to resistance. So I've learned today, friction is an alert. Hey, it's probably not my highest and best path. There's a lot of shoulds here, right? Where resistance is, where's my fear tied to? How can I let go of that fear? How can I address it so I can see, is it really friction or is it resistance? And then I can move through it and actually take that path.
Yeah. So you mentioned fear. Tell me if you agree with this statement that fear is the base for everything you or I or a person might need to conquer before they can make the change. There's a lot of excuses that can be thrown out there, like I don't have time, I don't have money, or if talking about wanting to start a business, I don't have time, I don't have money. But do you think at the base of that is just a fear of taking that leap?
So here's where I'm going to get a little spiritual on you, and just so I don't freak the audience out. In my own journey, I went from really deep into Christianity to almost to atheism to back to my spiritual practice is stronger than it's ever been. And where I'm at today is that I know that there is something much bigger than who I am, who we are as humans. And some people call it God, some people call it higher self, the collective intelligence, the source of all things. And when I think whether you read the Bible, the Talmud, the Quran, the Vedas, any of these religions really talk about love. Love is the core to everything. And God is love, right? So if we use that as just our basis, which is however you look at it, love is all there really is. The Beatles said it, right? Love is all there is. There is nothing else. Fear is not real. And if we use this construct, then fear is really on a continuum with love. It's on this sliding scale. It's really the polar opposite of love, but it doesn't really exist. It does in earthly terms because we have to have relativity to understand what is love. I got to step into fear to see what love looks like. What is fear? Well, I got to step into love to see what fear looks like. We need this perspective shift to be able to see the opposite of it, right? Like you don't know what tastes sweet if you've never had anything sour. You taste something sour, you're like, yep, that other thing is sweet. We need these opposite stuff. It's how we understand life as humans. So I say about fear, because if we're sitting in fear, or what feels like fear, a lot of times we don't have to defeat fear. There's nothing to win. Just step into, this is where choice comes in. Choose to step into the perspective of love, that the universe is conspiring for you, that there's really nothing, like fear's not real. And what does that look like? And fear can start to dissolve because that is how we start to let go. And when we let go, it dissipates, right? So I'll say one more thing on this. This is pretty far into some of this work, but the way to let fear go is to actually start paying attention to our emotions and feeling our emotions. Instead of what I did forever, which is like, oh, there's fear, shove it down. Oh, there's something else, shove it down. I'm not going to feel it. What happens is, if you look at ourselves as a lake, we're just forming this gas bubble that's growing and growing. And eventually it's going to pop and explode. And instead, if we, every time we had an emotion, and science says emotions hit us for about 90 seconds. If we can feel it and let it happen, be like, I'm scared right now. Let me just feel it. Here we go. Whew. Maybe you cry, maybe you're tingly all over, maybe you shiver, whatever it is. It's just like a little tiny bubble. Like you get in the pool and sometimes your shorts carry a bubble and a little one pops to the surface. That's it. It's not like you've got a geyser that's about to just blow up underneath everything. And that's where things get so heavy in our lives. And we can slowly let these emotions go. And fear is an emotion.
That's something where even if it's, let's say you're facing a tough financial month or something, it's very easy to kind of repress that or to act out or get down on yourself for not having enough money for the mortgage or something, whatever it might be. It seems like it's, in what you're saying is leaning into that emotion for however long it takes, whether it's a minute or 90 seconds or 20 minutes, whatever, then it gets you back to that kind of that square one of, okay, I've absolved myself of this emotion. I've absorbed it. Now it's time to move towards action step, right? Or here's where I am. How can I get better at this? Is that kind of in the same vein as the acceptance of that fear of that emotion?
It is. There's a really cool quote by the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. And he said, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. And if you're at peace, you're living in the present. And that's what is so powerful about actually feeling these emotions and just letting them actually happen, is that we can stay present. And when we're here in the present, this present moment, and we can reference Eckhart Tolle, all these other philosophers that say the only place you want to be is now. We only actually live in the now. Everything else is a remembering something or projecting something in the future that's not going to happen, right? But right now, this present moment, this is actually when we have choice. You look back on your life, something could have happened when you were a kid and you're like, my mom just, she made me so mad. I can't believe she did that to me. And you sit here now and maybe you had a long talk with her, or you've had a situation with your kid and you're like, my mom was doing her best. She didn't have the tools to do it differently and it sucked, but I get it. You just changed your entire narrative and belief about what happened because you actually addressed it in the present, which means none of these things are real. It's only this present moment that's ever actually real. And we take ourselves out of it by sitting in fear, which is usually about future stuff, or sitting in regret, which is about past stuff, or getting in our head and just meditating and going crazy. All of this is, how do we get just calm and present?
It's fascinating because tying it back to entrepreneurship, at least in my experience, it feels like a lot of my time is spent with part of my brain in the future, right? Because we're trying to see around corners. We're trying to, ideally, you're trying to grow your business, right? So it's what can I do down the line to make more revenue or improve our offering or hire more people, whatever the problem might be at the time, or maybe just get the dang thing off the ground. It's so easy to live in that future and then judge yourself where you are today based on the projection of yourself in the future. And it was a handful of months ago, I kind of realized that for myself, where I was living in the future success I want to have. There's nothing wrong with having those dreams and thoughts and working towards that, but I was basing my current self off of my future self. And it was destructive to my personal psyche. Like, it was bringing me down. It was making me depressed from time to time. And it was not a happy place to be. And when I realized that, it kind of, living in the present made me realize that what I'm doing today will help set the groundwork for the future and what will come. But you have to be in the now. So I can relate to that strongly.
Yeah, there's a chapter in my book, which we haven't talked about, but it's just part of it's my journey and part of it's 12 other people's journey through, and the book's called Paper Cuts, The Art of Self Delusion. Because for me, this is before I had choice and was living in the present. I was just was about how I was giving myself 1,000 paper cuts. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts because I was deluding myself with all these stories that weren't real. And I was creating this fantasy around what my life meant, who I was, and all these pieces versus letting it all go and getting to this courageous, authentic, and wild piece. But there's a chapter in there that it actually makes fun of SMART goals. I did it because I'm one of these guys who lives about 5 years into the future. That was one of my powers as CEO. I could vision out 5 years and I could live there. But how do you do that as an exercise, which is really helpful, but then come back and live in the present? And my problem with SMART goals is that you set all these things out, and now you've got this really rigid, really rote way. And yes, you can KPI it to death. What's happening every single day? This is how life works. We're in the flow. Life is full of seasons. It's so hard to really run companies off of very specific KPI-driven SMART goals when all we can really do is just show up every day. Some days you get more done in 2 hours than you get done in 2 days. Days you're just dragging ass. And it's just tough. And if we beat ourselves up or somehow benchmark ourselves to like those best moments, and then we hold ourselves accountable to it, this is where guilt and shame and all this pressure comes from. It's not helpful versus allowing ourselves, hey, I choose not to drink during the week because I want to show up as my best self. And my best self still may vary up and down, but not drinking for me means I'm clear-headed when I wake up. Or you start to put in place routines and best practices to help you show up in your best self, but you don't beat yourself up when you just don't. It just is. You're human.
Yeah, I love that. To be fully present in the present with oneself, do you have to look to the past to realize how far you've come in order to better live in the present? Or is it purely just making sure you're not living in the future? Because I know you said living in the past is, or the quote you mentioned was, living in the past can be depression. Living in the future can lead to anxiety. Living in the present is where you want to be. But knowing how far you've come, can that help you be more present in the here and now?
So my short answer is maybe. And the reason I say that is that, yes, all of us like to know that we're progressing, right? And this ties back to the gap versus the gain, which I'm sure many of your listeners have read. And it's really helpful. I look at my own journey and I go, okay, 15 months ago, I stepped out of this corporate career and I haven't achieved everything I've wanted to achieve. There's still this gap of me starting this new business. And what am I doing with my life from like giving? I want to give a lot, but I also need to create, I need to monetize it. And I look back and I go, well, what are my gains? And so I found this piece in my life. I wrote a book for the first time. I've got 30 hours of online video masterclasses I've recorded and designed and recorded and put online. I've walked a ton of people through this process. Like, holy cow, in 15 months, like I'm doing something totally different and it's successful and it's working. And I've stepped into creativity. It's like mind blowing that all this can happen in 15 months. And yet the gap, if I lived in the gap, I'd just be beating myself up. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And that wouldn't help. I'll say one more thing. With regards to the past, it is my very firm belief. A belief means it's my truth. It's not everybody's, but it's my belief that regret is one of the biggest disservices we can do to ourselves. You may have royally screwed up. You may have hurt people, although I don't really believe you can hurt people because it's their choice as whether to allow you to, or your behavior to somehow hurt them because they had different expectations. But either way, you may have done very destructive things. I did. And I don't regret them because if I hadn't done them and I hadn't gone through the journey and experienced, we're here to experience. That is what humans are here to do. I would not be where I'm at. And now I absolutely do not choose to repeat those actions, right? But those behaviors don't define me as a human. So as a human, I didn't do those things in trying to be destructive and trying to hurt people. Like I was doing my best today and I look back and go, oh, I was misguided and my brain was somewhere else and what the heck was I doing? But in the moment, I was still doing my best. Like I thought I was trying to succeed or win or make money or whatever it may be. And if I have regret over it, then I wouldn't have the experience, right? So that's what I mean by his quote is so interesting and poignant about living in the past is where we get depressed because we can't stay there. We can learn from it. And we have to actually appreciate it and say, it was really effing hard. And I'm really happy it happened because there's no way I'm ever doing it again.
I want to address one more thing with you that you and I chatted about for a minute before we hit record here. You'd mentioned a line that said, cultivated inner power. You need to cultivate your inner power to have an outer impact. Can you expound upon that? I think that's a great place to bring the plane down to the runway here.
Yeah. So I use this line in the leadership development work I do within organizations. And I found that when I was doing continuing education or learning and up-leveling with my staff or myself throughout the years, we always read like Patrick Lencioni management books. And these are great, but they're all just rule-based and knowledge-based stuff. And I found that my employees never wanted the same things I wanted. They were never motivated by the same things I was motivated by. And as in these last few years, as I've shifted into the mindset I have today, nothing I want or who I am means anything to anybody else. It's for me, right? And as I can get to a place where I trust myself, I love myself, and I can show up and just hold space and be there for other people to find that in themselves, for my employees to find that in themselves. It's me showing up in a way where I don't need to prove to you how smart I am. I don't need to tell you all the things I know because I've read so much and I've sat in a role that's higher than you and posture that I'm the boss and I started this, so you should listen to me. All that's gone. I've got this inner power of just peace, of knowing, of being comfortable in my own skin, of being authentic. And that has more outer impact. That shifts your culture. That empowers your employees to be their best self. That motivates them like nothing else.
I love it. Awesome. I hope our listeners can take some of this to heart and really, I think it's good, especially as an entrepreneur or business owner, to take a step back every now and then and assess who you are, where you are, and check in on yourself, right? Kind of tap yourself on the shoulder and say, how are you doing? How are you holding up? Like, how's it going? Whether you're flying high with massive success or you're at the very beginning stages or maybe you're in a struggling period, it's always a good, at least in my thought, it's always a good practice to check in with yourself. Well, Brent, where can our listeners find you? I know you mentioned your book, Paper Cuts. Where can our listeners pick up a copy? How can they get in contact with you? Share that with me now here.
Yeah, Amazon or really wherever you buy books or Audible, you can get Paper Cuts, The Art of Self Delusion. Just type in Paper Cuts. It should come up. And then all the other work I'm doing, from the leadership training within organizations or the one-to-one mentorship and the video master classes and a lot of the other inner work is all available on 3xbold.com. So the number 3, letter X, bold.com.
All right, you heard it, folks. Number 3, letter X, bold.com. Brent, thank you so much for joining us. This was a real pleasure.
I loved it. Thanks, Brien.
A big thank you to Brent for coming on today and sharing his knowledge, his wealth of knowledge when it comes to being bold and really taking a deep dive on ourselves and examining who we are, understanding our power of choice, and being able to understand our purpose in sharing our gifts with the world. I really hope this episode encourages you to take a step back. Whether you're an entrepreneur, going to be an entrepreneur, if you own a business, take a step back and examine yourself. Check in with yourself. Like I said on the episode, tap yourself on the shoulder and ask how you're doing. And if there's changes that need to be made, don't be afraid. Be bold. Make the changes you feel necessary and really live the life you want to live and own the business you want to own. So that's a wrap on the Millionaire University podcast today. As always, if you're feeling generous and you hop onto your pod player, you want to leave us a 5-star review, you like this episode or any of the other ones that we have put out there, we'd greatly appreciate it. And we appreciate you stopping by to take in the content that we put out there for you. We're always here to support you. We're rooting you on. We are on your side, and we want to continually encourage you to take those bold steps, those bold actions, and turn your entrepreneurial dream into your reality. All right, that's it. We will see you on the next episode of the Millionaire University Podcast. This is Professor Gearin signing off.